Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. Today we are doing drawing lessons number 2, breaking it down into shapes. A lot of people are asking what the heck this means, apparently, because either they didn't grow up with the Lee Ames book. If some of you are around my age, you probably had those books where it was the horse and it had circles and lines, and then gradually, step by step, through like it was either 6 or 8 different progressions, it went from basic shapes to the finished product. So for some people, that's just kind of a foreign concept. So we're going to look at that today, and we're going to kind of troubleshoot drawing as you go along, and how to, first we're going to just show it broken down into shapes, but how if you're struggling with the drawing and you're having problems, a lot of times you're doing it because you're drawing what you think you see, not what you actually see. So we'll kind of show you how to look at things as shapes instead of the actual object itself, and see if maybe that helps you have a little clearer picture with kind of how to define that form that you're trying to draw. We've got Frida on Facebook today, as usual. We've got Frida on, it's because you guys are like this, and I looked at her, and Amanda's on Facebook, Frida is on YouTube, and Katie is the camera woman extraordinaire, and Will is chief fiddler. I'm not sure if that's actually musical, or although I could see you doing that just with your bluegrass background. So, but he's fiddling to and fro, making sure everything's working right. So hopefully the sound and everything is great today. Real quick before we get started, if you're not a member of our Jerry's Live group and you're newer to the show, we have a Jerry's Facebook group. It's just Jerry's Live. Look at groups in Facebook. You can go ahead and submit to join. You have to answer that question to go ahead and have one of these lovely ladies over here approve you as a member. But that's the way to actually get into the group. The group posts lots of pictures. They do critiques. They do all sorts of just thoughtful questions. What was the really cool question somebody posted a few days ago about art and pricing, and what to do if somebody like friends or family come to you and they either want something for free or they think that you should, do 20, 30 hours of work for $50. So it's a great group to be part of. I highly recommend it. If you're interested in the products that we're going to be showing today, the way to find those is to go to jerrysartorama.com. There is a search bar up at the top. Type in JL101. I know it's getting longer, but we're at the 101st episode, so it's going to be JL101. Hit enter. That's a keyword. It'll take you to the actual list of the products that we showed today. Now, I did change out something just for the record for those of you that saw our drawing episode last time, because we're going to be closing out those Union Square pads that we talked about last time, which we still have them, and if you're interested in a really awesome deal on great drawing paper, highly recommend those. But we've got the Legion Stonehenge White as one of the 100% cotton kind of substitutions. And then we also have Legion's Lenox Cotton. It's 2 little bit different textures and paper, but when you're looking to do actual finished drawings and you're looking to do them on cotton, either of these papers would be ideal drawing accompaniments. For our demo today, we're going to be using the Jerry's Colossal Deluxe Sketchbook. I can't remember what size we had on there. I've got an 18 by 24 just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see the sketching at home. And that's what we're going to use. Apparently that's what we used last time because I see hands in there. So for those of you that were not with us for that first episode, you're going to get homework. So just saying now, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But everybody was really awesome in the Jerry's group last time with doing their homework, weren't they? Lots of people that did homework, so actually more people than when I taught at the prison. All right, so we're using the Paul Cézanne Superior Artist Graphite Drawing Pencils. We've got 2H through a 12B, which is probably like an 8B, because I didn't know that they made 12Bs. Did you, Katie? They do, apparently, but I would think it's an 8B. We're not going to use the really heavy leads now, but I am going to use a lead that's heavier than I actually would if I was going to be doing this underdrawing, just so you're going to be able to see it, okay? Normally I would do a 2H, an H, an HB for that underdrawing just because it's drier. It's got more clay in it than it has graphite in it, so it's much easier to erase. And it has a really, really kind of light hand, light surface tinting, I guess, as it were, to the paper, so that if I didn't want to erase it and I wanted to leave those lines kind of underneath, I can work in darker pencils for the more finished drawing around it and don't necessarily have to erase. So just so you know, if I go to erase this and it's a little bit sloppy, it's probably going to be because I'm going to be using a heavier B lead. I think I'm going to start out with 2B, but I may switch up a little bit higher than that. Throughout this, I'm probably going to stop a lot to sharpen my pencil. That's something I really encourage you guys to do. It's hard to get good line quality. It's hard to get line that's easy to erase and stuff like that if it's starting to get thick and wide and smudgy because you're not keeping that pencil sharp. So that's what we're going with. All right, so now I've got multiple funny little, and if anybody is, first, any of you ladies afraid of snakes, because there is a snake in this, and I won't draw it if any of you guys are weird about snakes.
That's not a real one.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, darn. Let me put that away. No snake. I used to have one. His name was Pretzel.
I had a ball python. His name was Bootstrap.
Yeah. So, all right. So I got a bear. I got a really cute little chimpanzee face. We've got an elephant. We've got, and we're using animals because it's good to break it down into shapes. A lot of people are not used to drawing animals, so it's actually a really good practice thing to use because it makes you actually look at the shapes more. Got a little turtle, got this beautiful little snake, and I've got some flamingos. Ladies, any of you have a preference in what you?
I like the turtle.
The turtle. Okay, let's start with the turtle then.
I think he shows up best on camera.
Okay. All right, the elephant may be next because it's pretty light and dark around the edges. Okay, so we're going to start with this little box tortoise.
Turtle.
Yes, turtle is water, tortoise is land.
Turtle.
All right, with the overhead, can we see him and then where I'm going to be drawing? Will that work right there? Okay, I got to move him down a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to have one here, and I'm going to keep one where if I feel the need to actually draw over him, we'll be able to do that so you can see the shape that I'm talking about, okay? So when we're looking at this little tortoise here, we've got multiple shapes going on. We've got kind of a domed upside down U right there that kind of, as his little shell kind of goes off, it's going to be kind of slant off to the side. He's got his little carapace here that's flat, and then it's going to come up where his little legs come out. Little round head. Got some little kind of interesting organic shapes for his front legs. So what we're going to do is start first with the larger shapes, and then we'll go in and refine the other shapes. Now, as I'm talking about this, we're going to talk about things kind of in quadrants. I'm going to explain that now. If we've got this in the middle, this is splitting the shell roughly in half, right here and here. When I'm talking about this being on the left quadrant, his head, you can see here, his head is not centered. People a lot of times are going to want to make it centered, and the center of his shell is this little kind of doodad right here that you can see. But for this to be centered from that shell that we're going to be drawing, his head is off to the side. So just take note of that. The same thing for the legs. If this is the top and this is the bottom, they're going to be in that lower third, okay? So this is something that, as stupid and basic as it sounds, you want to start paying attention to. A lot of the drawing isn't in the shapes that you make and the strokes that you take, it's in the observation of the actual item. All right, so set him over here. All right, so we're going to kind of do our, is this going to be dark enough, ladies? Can you see well enough to tell?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure because it's hard to, I can't see it up there very well. So, all right, that's fine. Okay, so that's just getting this basic shape. I've actually brought it down further than it's going to be. It's going to kind of start coming out here. But you can see we've got our basic shell shape here. Now I'm going to go and find kind of where this is going to be in relation to kind of how tall as to how wide, okay? So I've made this rounder. So we're going to cut this kind of off top. This is slightly higher than middle, so we're gonna call middle of his head there, good. And then we've got the bottom. So I'm gonna do this for the middle, and I'm gonna do this for the bottom, all right? So we've got 1 and 2, right? Can everybody see that? Mm-hmm. All right, so then I'm gonna look back at this. This is the highest point here, and it starts sloping a little bit more. It's fine to leave some of these lines, okay? And it would obviously be so much lighter if I was using that H pencil, so I'm gonna make this line slightly darker. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and take this, just so nobody gets confused. Ah! The turtle flies away. All right, so we got that. This comes out a little bit more right here. So I'm gonna bring that there. This is in an angle like that. Don't be afraid to put your pencil down on your reference drawing so you can kind of see what the angle is and make sure you're getting it right. So if this is like this is going to come down like that. Now, if I was doing this just home on my own, I would not erase until much nearer the end because I'd want to kind of keep my lines for reference. You can see this slopes out more than here. Because of the angle that he's at, his body is starting to turn this way in the shell. We're catching this at a much kind of still rounded angle where this is starting to kind of twist him there to the front. So this is good. I want to keep that. So we've got his head here. Remember I said that we're drawing, that he's off center, right? Everybody can see that? All right. And that's because he's turned. So to him, he's straight, but because we're seeing him off center. So if this is my center line, his eye is going to go right through here. He's not right there at the top of that shell. See how he's kind of, we're going to say that that's a circle, okay? So we've got his little head in there. We're just blocking this in. I'm going to tweak this. This is not going to stay necessarily this round, but we're just trying to kind of make sure we've got our shapes where we want them to be before we go on. All right, so if we're looking at him again here, we've got his shell, you can see right here, 1, kind of 2 on the sides. So this is a third, this is a third. His leg is kind of starting at that third. So if this is my third here, and this is my third here, his leg is going to be starting in here. We kind of can't see it in the shadow, but we're going to make, it's kind of an egg shape there. You guys can see that. So we're going to make that egg shape. It comes out a little more and twists back. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to get this kind of shape in relation to the other leg before we go any further. So here, this one is at that other third line if we split that shell into thirds, okay? So we're going to come over here. That's kind of our third. So his leg is actually going to be kind of, if we look at, I'm going to grab another pencil. See, that's not exactly straight, but it's still, the lines are parallel to each other, right? So we're going to take that, bring this down, kind of round that edge, and then his foot kind of drops. So I'm going to look at where the shell ends. I'm going to look at over here, shell, his foot drops right here, okay? And right now it's not necessarily important that we've got that, the right angle, we're just kind of blocking that in, making sure that this looks proportionate. This, as to that, this is about double the size. So that's pretty close. I'm gonna look back at this part of his leg, it comes back up, and then he's got the feet kind of, the foot kind of tucked back. So I'm just gonna drop that down, make that flatter there where that kind of comes around, and bring that up. All right? So we've got that pretty much spaced out to where it's going to be. I'm going to come back here and look at this part that's on the bottom, the plasteron. We've got, it comes across right here where the bottom of that leg is. All right, so I'm just going to bring a reference line over here. What this is, I'm just making notes for where I want things to be. All right, so that's the bottom, but then this is the front. This part sticks out more, goes kind of into his shell like that and drops down under. So I need to find out That looks like it goes right up under his head. I'm gonna look at his head. This is where I'm gonna look at, okay, so we've got that rounded head kind of blocked in. Before I draw this, although this is round, here where it's light, it's a little bit square. Can you guys see that? If I do that on him, we're gonna leave this one blank so you guys can see. All right, so I wanna look at this and I wanna make this a little squarer. All right, so if we've got that done, then the plastron comes up. This is pretty good for this part here, but I'm gonna bend it just a little like it is in the picture. Okay, and then we're just gonna leave that as is. All right, now we're gonna adjust this here. We've just kind of left this loose and hanging, right? I'm gonna come back to here. Gonna come over that part. Don't have my handy dandy rabbit brush to brush away the crumbs. All right, so this is this part here, kind of right above that third of his head. This 1, 2, that's right there. So we're going to bring this over and then start to drop. This drops. It has a curve to it, but almost kind of there. So first we're gonna make that just straight drop to the leg, or right there. And then we're gonna come over here. This, because he's turned slightly, is going to come at a little bit straighter angle. All right, so we're gonna take that and drop that right to the foot. All right, can everybody see? Does anybody have any questions about this so far, ladies? Just as we're blocking this in, we're not gonna worry about any of kind of the patterning on the shell or anything like that. Right now, we're just discussing making this into shapes, and then we'll kind of straighten out the drawing from there. Any questions so far?
Everything's just whacked.
No? Okay.
Some of them have run to get their pencils.
Okay. Well, I can put these pictures up in the Jerry's Live group too afterwards. I'll see if I can't figure out how to do that. Okay? All right. So from here, I'm going to round this out. This comes like that. Just slightly past his little head. And then I'm going to drop it, kind of curves, curves, and then it curves. Okay, back up there and comes back around like that. Okay, so if you see that, it's here, 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 there. Okay, so we're kind of back here to the back of that shell. I'm gonna take this, let's clear that out so you can see kind of where that curve is from there. All right.
Do you have any suggestions on how to tell if the size of your shapes, your proportions are correct? What's the best way to check that?
The best thing you can do is hold your pencil, okay, and eyeball where this is at. So you're always going to want to hold it the same amount of space. If you're doing this, you can always take it and actually lay it on the page and go, okay, so this comes here on my pencil. They're asking how you can kind of tell if you're getting those proportions right. So this is about 1/4 of the pencil, right? If I was going to break this one, make sure you use the same pencil because that could be bad, and don't sharpen it a lot. But it would be about there is 1/4 of that pencil. So he is 3/4 of the pencil tall. So I would come down here and kind of determine with this, okay, this one is this far. Might need to take a note. Or you can do an easier thing. It's just called sighting. You're just going to kind of, from where I'm standing, always kind of hold it the same amount of space. It's there. So I would come down and kind of back it up to my eyesight and determine, okay, that's right about like that. Then you can do that for the different sides, okay? I'll see if I can't put an article. It's hard to explain. I did find an article once on that, on kind of learning to do proportions from that, from sight proportions with a pencil or your hand, or, you know, you've seen artists do it with their thumb, where they got their thumb up and they're doing this. I'll put it in the Jerry's Live group. probably tomorrow because it's going to take me a little bit of searching the link for it. But it kind of explains it a little bit better. And some drawing books, like I think Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain and Drawing on the Artist Within, discuss how that works. Okay, all right, so we're back over here to this little spot. Again, that angle was good coming down. It's a little bit more forced, rounds back out to the leg. This actually comes down and his leg is just under it, so I'm going to stop there and then bring that kind of like that. Okay? All right, so now that we've got that, let's take this little edge off there. Let's focus on kind of giving his head and legs a little bit more detail to get kind of that in there. Okay, let me make sure I've got the same pencil. All right. Okay, so we've got his little head, and now this is very dark, so it's hard to see. You can actually see pretty okay up there. All right.
Okay, you can see better on that side angle.
Okay. All right. So should I put this like this so they can see that part? Will that help at all? Just with the head as I'm talking about now, because it's kind of laying down. You think so? Okay. All right. Okay, so his head is turned. Right here is his nose, and right between his nostrils. That's the 1/3 and then 1/3 how he is kind of turned. So I'm going to put a little tick mark right here so I know that's where his nostrils are, because that's my third. Over here, his eye starts right in that next third. Okay, see how the edge of his eye is right there? So I'm going to put a little tick mark right there for where his eyeball starts. And then over here, roughly a slight bit more than half is where the edge of that other eyeball is. So between here and here, I'm going to put a little tick mark, just a little over half, right there for that other eyeball. Okay? So then I'm going to see how high that nose is between the top of his head and right underneath his chin there. It's just really close to a third, maybe just slightly above that. So I'm going to kind of figure out where my third is, and I'm going to put kind of a tick mark just slightly above that, come across. Okay, so that's where his nostrils are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in so I can see them. Nostrils on these little guys go up and down. Okay. All right, and I'm going to just leave this line in between just so I've got that in case I need to refer to it for now. Then with his mouth down here, that's about a quarter. Quarter, that's half, and up from there. So it's close to a quarter, slightly, maybe lower. So I'm going to look, half is here, quarter's here. Gonna make that mouth right there. Okay? Now his mouth wraps around here. He almost looks like he's smiling. It's kind of funny. So the highest part is going to be right under his eye. Okay? Where it comes up and then kind of drops back. So I'm going to bring that. Now I'm looking at the turtle as I'm doing this. I'm not just kind of guesstimating. And then this drops back down and back down. Okay, so here I'm just going to look at what this shape is. It's kind of a little bit of an upside down U. So I'm just making that. Then I'm looking at this. This comes straight for just a minute there. And then right under where the outer edge of his eye is, it drops back down. Okay, so I've got his mouth in there. We're going to leave the bottom of the head alone for now. We're going to go ahead and get his eyes put in. Now the eyes, you can see, are at an angle. Instead of making it up and down, we're actually going to put that eyelid at this angle here, which is like this. It's hard for you guys to see, so I'm going to put that across like that. So it's coming roughly at an angle like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take that, and it comes in slightly lower than that nostril. The nostril's here. Bottom of the eye is there. So I've got that little eyelid, okay? And over here, because we're seeing him a little bit more of this side of his body, it's not going to be as harsh of an angle, okay? It's It's going to come up more and then kind of across at a slightly kind of lower angle. So I've got this on here, going to come across. So that's the angle that I want before the eye starts to drop here. And then we've got kind of this curved edge coming back. So I'm going to drop it. And then we've got that curved round edge coming back. Okay? Over here, we're seeing the side of the eyeball just kind of out in the open. So I'm going to put that on there. And then it comes back right there. Make sure that the height is the same on both, because regardless of him, his head is still square, right? His head isn't tilted. So regardless of this being a harsher angle, we're still going to see the top as the same on both sides. So make sure the top is the same. Make sure the bottom is the same. The bottom is the same on both sides. So if I'm not sure, I could draw that imaginary line across and see it squares up. He looks angry. He looks happy there, kind of. Mine looks angry. I'm not sure why. Probably because I'm drawing lines all over him. All right. So now that we've got this in, we're going to worry about, there's a little bit of kind of some darker stuff around it, a little bit of an outline. I'm just going to take a shape and kind of very lightly reference that. It's almost like an outline around it where it's darker. So I'm just putting that on there. Over here, you don't have that because it's not in the shadow, so we're not going to worry about that. His nose is very bulbous here. Okay, it's almost like an upside down U, so I'm going to very lightly sketch that on there. See how I've got that little bit of a U shape? So we're starting to kind of define the top of his head. Some of it is tucked back in the shadows there. So what we're going to do is finish kind of defining that. This is where we can take the eraser and go ahead and take some of those lines out. Just so it's a little easier to see kind of our turtle and what we're doing here. I don't have any hockey brushes over here. No, this is soft. Yay! Oh, good God. All right. That'll get rid of some eraser crumbs. Thank you. All right, I need to sharpen this. All right, so now the shadow, his head is further back here, but we're going to drop this line right behind his eye where the shadow is. So it's at an angle very similar to that shell. So we're going to drop that kind of like that. And then we can see a little bit more that side there. So we're going to kind of bring it like this. Kind of scoops down, rounded right there. Okay? Again, we can take that, go ahead and erase some of those harsher lines, if you like. All right, we're gonna come back over here. On this side, it's very clearly defined after those shadows where his face is. So it's higher up here over his little eye. So we're gonna take that and make it square right there. Drops at his eye, comes down. That mouth joins in. Then this comes at kind of an angle like this here, like that. So we're gonna drop that and then just kind of round that out. And then his shell is going to be under here. So we're going to leave some of that for the shadow. Now, this doesn't seem very finished, which is fine. But what you can do, I'm going to do this real quick just so you guys can see. It'll really make his head look more 3D. I'm going to shade this real quick. See how suddenly that makes him a little bit more 3D? You can really see his little face. This is just so it's a little easier for you guys to see what you've just kind of made with shapes. Is that slightly easier to see for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So now let's work on some of the feet, let's say, because we want to kind of get this going, and then we can decide if we want to do another quick sketch. We want this to be a little bit longer, you think? You want to ask them if they want this one to be a little bit longer, and we can maybe just do a very gestural drawing of the elephant at the end, since that's kind of a fun shape.
Can we darken this one up a little bit so that viewers can see it just a tad better?
I can try. Let's wait till we get some of the leg first. I'll try to be a little heavier handed. Okay, so his leg goes way back into the shell, okay? So this is not the edge, but we're gonna kind of define that as the edge right now. It's a rounded shape right here. It kind of comes around almost like a U. So we've got this, comes around like that, like a U that's twisted to the side, okay? Then kind of where that muscle is, comes down like that for this little kind of part that's gonna turn. And then it comes back there. Here, Frida, I'll push on these lines a little harder so it's a little easier to see kind of where we've made. Let's do this, will be a little easier to see his eye too. Is that slightly easier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to darken this eye a lot more so you can kind of see where that's at. Okay. That better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Feels weird because I'm not that heavy-handed normally, so. Okay.
Hey, Amy.
Yes.
BP wants to know, if you were doing this before a painting, how much detail would you really put in before you started adding pigment?
I would have just kind of left it at blocking the head in, blocking the eyes in, like we already were before I started adding shadow. I would not have worried about the detail in the feet. What she asked, just in case they haven't heard, if I was doing this for a painting, where would I stop and start the paint? I would not already start shadows in here. I would not worry about the detail that we're going to put in the legs and stuff. I would leave it at that and start blocking it more in with paint, and then actually probably draw it in paint. If I was worried about that with oil, I would do it with a little bit of solvent added so it's drier, so it can dry overnight, and then I can go back in and make corrections if I need to. But I would not, it's more about, are these shapes blocked in? Does it look right? Are they in proportion to each other? Is the leg as a unit in proportion to the other leg? Is the head in proportion to the shell? Is the shell in proportion to where the legs are? And then go from there. Maybe if this was going to be a finished painting, I would have put like my shadow in where that's going to be, just so I kind of know where some of those basic lines are for planning. But I would leave it at that. I wouldn't go beyond that, because what you're worried about for your painting is the proportion. If you do a really finished drawing, what's going to happen is if you made a mistake with it, there's something about finished drawings that people will not go back and erase and not go back and change, because they feel like this ownership of said image, and that they would just rather like see it brutally to the end and have it all messed up than actually like try to alter it and fix it for the better. Does that make sense? So if you only leave it as your basic outline, making sure that your shapes are in kind of, proportion to each other and things like that, then you're going to feel less likely to rush something. You'll kind of work on those darks and lights and the color, and then you'll feel probably a little bit less likely to be resistant to corrections as it goes along. Okay, so we've got his leg here. We're going to kind of finish this part of his leg here. This is going to stay just kind of loose because it's starting to fall into shadow. I'm more worried about right here where we can see it outside that shadow. So I'm going to bring that down. Now he's got toes here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but he's got little toes. There's 3 of them, and then 1 is dug into the ground. So this is where the ground is kind of covering it up. And then I'm going to just ghost in some ovals. I'm going to look at that. I need to make them a little bit larger comparatively. Okay. So there's his little toes in the sand. You really can't see because of the shadow, kind of that leg pushed back. It really comes back and there's shadow here. But if this is our underdrawing for a painting, that's not going to matter because the color and the value is going to be what defines that. So we're not worried about that for this drawing, okay? If we were going to actually go on and make this a finished drawing, we would need to start addressing that once kind of the rest of that gets put in. So let's come over here. We've got this leg comes from here down. It's curved up. He's actually got his leg pulled up and in the shell like this. So this part is actually up right by his head. I can just see in the value that the part is up by his head there, comes down. Make sure I got my angle. I don't have my angle quite hard enough. And it's swept around. This is actually at an angle like this, so I had it a little off. So it's actually a very similar angle to here where the front of his foot is. Can you guys see how that's really close to parallel right there? So if that's like that, this needs to be like this, okay? Curves around, we can't see his toes over here. And then that foot comes up and into that shell, okay? We're not worried about any of this. We don't have to draw every little kind of scale that he's got on there. We're just worried about where this shape is to be able to work from. And we need to make sure that we get this shape real nice and dark. So starting up here, we've got this little kind of piece. Get that. This sweeps down. There's a piece that kind of comes up like that. This is where if you want to add those pieces, this comes in right by his head. You could start kind of working your little pieces of the shell in there with it. Then this is another little piece that kind of joins on. All right, over here. This is a pretty decent shape. I like how that turned out. That's going to come down right here with his eye. About kind of an angle like this across is where that first shell shape kind of is. So we could put that there. And that's something where if you were going to do all those little things on there, Amanda, you definitely would want to go ahead and have those kind of ticks in there so you at least know where you're going to need to start and stop those parts. Okay, so gonna just ghost these in. I'm looking at this compared to that line in the back. It's parallel. So that's gonna come up, comes across at an angle like that. So that's gonna be kind of where that cutoff is for that. This comes up. We've got this going on with this big lump there that kind of starts back here. Right, it comes up right from between the nose almost. And then this one is coming up at an angle from just outside the eye. wonder if soccer balls got designed off of turtle shells, because if you really look at them,
They're very similar.
mm-hmm. Okay, this comes up and over. These are up kind of here. I'm just putting some basic line in if I want this information to kind of tell me roundabout what the shape is going to be. All of these, I'm just putting lines on edge, just viewing them in comparison to that. Do this side, and then we're going to come back down here and finish the bottom of him. Okay. It's harder to see over here because the value changes. So I'm just going to draw in really quick what little bit I can kind of see. This one's really so light you can't, and it's a big piece too. Okay. All right, so now we're going to come down here. This is a kind of big flat piece between those two. Comes up at an angle towards his mouth like this. That one comes at an angle towards the bottom of his eye, it looks like. So right like that. This drops under his eye, so that needs to get moved over slightly. And it's not coming up straight, it's coming up at an angle towards the center of his eye. So we're going to do that. We're seeing this outer edge, so drawing this isn't really defining it. I'm just going to draw what the shadow is underneath of that. Then there's these little kind of shell pieces, comes down, and then under here is kind of where that stops. And you can't see it because this is all shaded there with the value, right? So I'm just going to draw a line across here so I know that that's going to be the bottom. So that's going to be, when I do a painting, that's going to be my darkest darks because it's right up there under him, okay? In fact, I'm just going to do this so that it's easier to kind of see that drop away. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to do this so it's a little easier to see his little head pop. Questions, ladies?
We're just kind of watching.
All right, so that's just kind of the basic blocking it in. This is not a finished drawing. This is just blocking this in and getting now some good detail on it. So if we just wanted to do this as a drawing, obviously I would not have just started shading there. Okay, I would have started refining the shape and the form. If I really wanted to put all these little scales in, start working on kind of where those are, and then go from there. Okay? Looks like we got about 15 more minutes, so let's try an elephant. What you think? Okay. Now I picked an elephant and I picked a profile shot because people always think of elephants as these big beefy blocks of meat with legs. Their knees and elbows and stuff are so screwed up when you really look at them, you have no idea what the heck you're looking at. Because unlike other animals where the knee joint, like dogs and cats and things, the knee joint is going to come up higher and then come back, and there's a hock that goes down, right? Which is our ankle, right? Our ankle and our arch of our foot. These guys, their knee is here, goes up, their pelvis is here. This is their femur, it comes down to their knee. This comes down to their heel, and then this is their foot. So it's up very high. It looks like some man in a Halloween costume where he's got like really baggy overalls on and he's walking on all fours.
It really does.
Then over here, this is something very unusual, and it's not in a lot of animals because structural, which the vast amount of years these guys live is amazing, in that this is the shoulder blade right here, it's pushed very far forward compared to most animals. There's usually a better layback because structurally it gives more support. So this is probably because they got so big so fast. This was the body's only way to adapt and hold that front, that heavy head and that trunk. The shoulder is almost completely straight. The shoulder blade is here. Then this is the forearm, right? This is their elbow right here. So that's this part. And then there's this big, long, all the way down to where this would be kind of their heel, if it was us with a hand. And then that. That's just, and this is straight. Look how straight it is. It's almost ramrod straight. In dogs, this is an incredible fault. He would not, a dog would fall apart and not be able to run and play and would get bad arthritis and all that. In this guy, somehow that's like really awesome and works. Then you've got the spine. They don't have a flat back like a horse or curve, you know. It's got a little bit of curve, but look at how the tilt of their pelvis comes down so low. And then they've got this to support this big, giant skull and the weight of that trunk. Fascinating engineering. Amanda's like, draw the picture. Okay, so if we're looking at this, the best thing we can do first to get this stance is to actually draw like a big shape and then some shapes for this, then a center line for each of these things, just to make sure we've got the leg positioning correct. I'm going to put this one here so it's a little easier for me to see. That one's got some shine for me. I think they can see this one okay. Do you think, Katie? Or is this a little too shiny compared to this too for the camera?
Can you prop the back of the drawing board up, or the drawing pad up a little bit? Or just that?
Okay,
Yeah.
how about this?
I think that's because it's just,
Is that any better? It seems shinier.
pull it down. So that, or push
Okay,
the,
there we go.
push the pad up a little bit.
Okay.
And now pull the picture down a little bit.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. So first I'm going to find where the head is. The head is kind of a shape like an egg that kind of got squished sideways, right? See that shape? It has very short ears. All right. So then I'm going to come back here as a straight line to this. I know there's this curve, but for right now we're just doing a straight line to come back to kind of find where that kind of roachy back of the spine is. And then it drops off, right? All right, then this is almost another egg shape. So I'm gonna focus it up here. See how that kind of is starting to fill in that body? Then we're gonna bring the legs out from here. Drop to the knee, put this down. This is very straight compared to right back here. This is coming off of that shoulder. So it's going to come down and almost bent a little bit there. Then we've got this one comes down. Is everybody in agreement? That's about kind of where those are. Not dead center line. Let's do this. Does that make sense, everybody? Mm-hmm. Everybody? All right. Tail. Drop that little doohickey there. All right. Under here, comes out almost like this. And then that's going to drop. Okay? Tusks are kind of here from the mouth. Ear, we could go ahead and put that in. It's not very large, so it's going to just come right like that. All right, so we've got our shape. You can see where the legs are. You can see where the weight is distributed, right? So now we're going to come back in and revise this. First, I'm going to come along and we're going to work on this part. So we're going to base the other things and how they fit in kind of off this part and making sure that all works. Is this dark enough to see, guys? Okay.
here on the side angle, which is why I have it up there.
That's fine. If anybody has comments, just have them, or questions, just go ahead and shout them out, because I'm going to work very quickly. Okay, so you can kind of see this is the back of the hip. That's actually the tail. All right. So this drops down. Back of that muscle is right here to that funny baggy knee. This is going to come down to this part where that kind of, I guess, ball of the foot almost would be if it was a person. And they actually have like this big freaky hoof, which I wish I had a picture of what they look like up close. It's very weird. Now here's where the bell bottom kind of pants of the leg is. I mean, it looks like a bell bottom pants. That knee is very straight. This actually comes like this. This is going to come up here. All right. We've got the belly. Belly is coming up like that. Let me do this. Excuse you. Somebody's phone just vibrated. All right. So I'm going to do this rear leg. Checking that angle, making sure that works. Now with this, the way that he's got his foot, it actually looks more hoof-like. So plant that there. All right. So with these, I'm just drawing some kind of lines to kind of see if I can see where the form is, and then going in and adjusting it. Up here, we've got that kind of odd elbow there. And this continues on at a slant, so we want that to be slanted. We need that. We need all these 4 feet to look believable in our weight distribution, okay? So, and it's very funny because the side shot is almost perfect. They're almost all in a straight line, which that's very unusual. But I guess because it's such a big, gigantic animal and the angle that the person took it in, they all fit right across the bottom like that. Okay, so this needs to come a little further out. Then so that's going to come up to here, kind of the front of that leg. It's going to come up into kind of that shoulder area to the neck. Okay, now it looks right, but I don't like it, so we're going to change that. The weight distribution looks wonky. Where'd my eraser go? All right, that's a little better. Okay, then we got the front leg right here. It's coming out. And we got sirens. It's only a matter of time before they're gonna find you, Amanda. I keep telling you. Okay. Just erasing some of the lines where it's making it hard to see where I've done. Okay. So does this look like an elephant, the shape, the movement? Let's come up here and we'll go ahead and get his head in. I've made this a little high, so I'm going to come back and fix the ears, come up like that. Here's that front of that forehead. It's going to come down. The eye is kind of in this big, great big, find where the eye is going to be, right in here. see this great big ridge. Okay. And that continues on. Eraser. Fix it. All right. Looks like a cartoon trunk. It's really funny. Like a little fire hose. Okay. So he's got kind of the ridgy back to it. I'm not going to worry about that right now. What I'm worrying about is getting this to look and read, because you can see a little bit of, it's flat on the bottom and then comes up like this. So it's getting this to look and read enough like seeing the back of that flat bottom. And that's kind of where that edge is. He's got a tusk here. It's kind of hard to see it with the shadow. A little bit of a mouth. Okay, now the ear can come down a little bit more. All right, kind of this part here for his ear. All right, can everybody kind of see how we figured that? This is just kind of that shadowy dip right in front of the ear, and his neck actually comes up like that. All right, any questions?
Nope.
What do you think the merits of doing shapes versus drawing contours is?
The problem with contours is you're only basing it on whatever's next to it or in front of it, right, that you've already drawn. Shapes, at least you can look at it, and once I got those lines on there, I could tell, okay, this leg is not at the right angle compared to this leg, so I could adjust those and make it look like the weight was actually there on kind of over the elephant's body, right? So if you're drawing based only on the contours, you're only basing it on what you already have down, not everything in total. Then is when you're starting to get into that, you're starting to feel fully invested in it, right? And you're not as willing to make those corrections that you might need to make. That's a good question, though. Any others? All right, well, this is what I want people to do. Do you think I should
Homework.
Yep. Do you think I should let them go to Pixabay and pick their own, or do you think I should put pictures in the Jerry's Live group and then they have to use pictures that I give? It might be more fun to pick their own, right?
Yeah.
Okay, pick things you're not used to drawing.
Yeah.
Okay, pick different things, pick different shapes. You can pick, you know, the chimp had a really close-up cute face, so you could just work on the face and head only. I wanted to do this bear so bad, but then it really didn't show up very well on the
Camera.
thing, because looking at just shapes, it can help you draw foreshortening, because foreshortening is going to be the next drawing lesson that we do.
201.
So that's why we focused on shapes for today, because shapes, if you're drawing the shape rather than the actual thing, you can get things like, you know, feet and legs coming towards you, arms coming towards you. So pick stuff that you're not used to drawing. And like I said, animals, because they're enough like people, are kind of helpful in that you're used to looking at people, but it's not as scary as people. So do two, and they can be rough like this. They don't have to be finished. This is just using the shapes to get you that basic underdrawing, okay? And then post them in the Jerry's Live. I would love to see them. If you don't feel like posting them in Jerry's Live, if you don't, I guess if you're not big on that, you can still, can they access Facebook and just message? I think so. Can you?
You have to have an account to message somebody.
Oh, well, that's not going to work then. Well, you should just join and do your homework. Just use this for homework. Homework purposes only. Because that's would be fun. hi, I don't like using the computer and I'm gonna have to use it and do homework. So that's all right. It'll help learn. You are the master of your own artistic destiny. And these are the tools we're trying to give you to do it. So, all right. So let's see that homework. You got a week till next Tuesday. So dig deep and give it a shot.
Maybe
And
we could put up just a few pictures in the live group just for people who aren't familiar with Pixabay or how to use programs like that.
Why don't you put the two up that, in there that you draw? that you
okay,
drew?
that's what I'll do. I'll put up the elephant and I'll put up the turtle, the little tortoise, and we'll do that. Okay. All right. So next week, it's an acrylics lesson, I think, isn't it? I did not write it down.
Did you see that?
How to incorporate basic acrylic mediums.
All right. So we're going to be showing you from just you got your basic paints, how you start mixing in mediums to do different things while you're painting. Okay? All right. You guys have a great week. Do your homework. Did I say do your homework? Do your homework.
I love seeing their homework.
Yeah. And we will be back with acrylics next week, guys. Bye.